They said Tola was beauty and brain in one body. Every street in Suralere knew her name, the girl who spoke English like radio presenters. But her pride was taller than Third Mainland Bridge. Me? Enter Okada? God forbid, she always said. I'm too fine for that life. That Monday morning, her mother shouted from the kitchen, Tola, phone for you. She wiped her powdered face, snatched the phone, and heard, you're invited for an interview at A&A Holdings. Her eyes lit up like generator light at night. Finally, she whispered, my big break. By noon, she stood at the bus stop under Legos heat that could roast yam. Her perfume was gone. Sweat trickled down her back. But still, she refused the dusty Okadas zooming past. God, please send me a proper car, she muttered. Then one bike stopped before her, the rider's eyes calm and kind. Madam, where you day go? He asked softly. She eyed him from head to toe and hissed. Little did she know, the man she just insulted wasn't just a rider. He was her test. The sun burned hotter, and Tola's hope began to fade. Every taxi was full, every driver shouting, no change oh. Then her phone buzzed. The interview reminder. Panic struck her heart. She sighed, looked at the same Okada, rider waiting patiently nearby. Fine, she muttered, adjusting her skirt. Just take me to Lekki Phase 1. He smiled slightly. Nigerian Naira 700, madam. Nigerian Naira 700. For this your scrap bike? She snapped. You think I'm a fool? But time was running. She climbed on, still fuming. As the wind slapped her face, she began to talk, not softly, but with venom. You Okada people know they tire? Always blocking the road. Look at your dusty shirt. The man said nothing. He only focused on the road, calm as water. His silence annoyed her more. Why are you quiet? Cat got your tongue. Still, nothing. Only the hum of the engine. When they finally stopped before the tall gates of A&A Holdings, she jumped off quickly, wiped her heels, and threw a crumpled 1,000 Nigerian Nairas note at him. Keep the change. Maybe you'll buy soap. He looked at her gently and said, Sometimes, madam, God hides blessings in dust. She rolled her eyes and walked away. But destiny had just begun its silent dance. Tola stood before the shimmering glass doors of A&A Holdings, her reflection staring back. Tired, sweaty, but proud. She wiped her face, adjusted her blouse, and whispered, No one must know I came here on Okada. Inside, the air was cool, scented with success. The reception was filled with men in suits and women tapping laptops like their fingers printed money. Name? The receptionist asked. Tola Adeyemi, she replied confidently. I'm here for the manager position. As she waited, she caught people glancing at her. Their perfume smelled expensive, their smiles fake. A guard offered her water. She refused. I'm fine, she said proudly, though her throat was dry. When her name was finally called, her heart danced. She took one deep breath, held her file tightly, and walked toward the CEO's office. She opened the door and froze. Behind the grand mahogany desk sat the Okada rider, clean-shaven, in a suit that screamed power. A gold watch glinted on his wrist. He smiled calmly. Good afternoon, Miss Tola. I believe you had a smooth ride. Her breath caught. Yes, sir, you. He leaned forward, eyes steady. Sit down. Let's talk about humility. The air inside the office was heavy, like a church just before confession. Tola's knees trembled. The man she mocked on the road was now the boss she came to impress. Her mouth went dry. She tried to speak, but shame locked her lips. He looked at her calmly, not with anger, but disappointment. So, Miss Tola, he said, flipping through her CV, you graduated with honors. Impressive. But tell me, what does respect mean to you? Her eyes fell. The clock ticked. She had no answer. He leaned back in his chair. You see, life is funny. People wear dust today and diamonds tomorrow. The problem is most of us only bow to diamonds. Tola's chest tightened. She wanted to disappear. Sir, please forgive me, she whispered. I didn't know who you were. He raised an eyebrow. That's the problem, Miss Tola. You respect only who you think matters. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then he said softly, I won't fire you. Not yet. You'll still get a chance, but not as a manager. Her eyes widened. You'll start here as a cleaner. Tola's tears fell freely. The proud graduate had just met her real test. The next morning, Tola stood before the company's entrance. No heels, no makeup, just a plain uniform and a mop in her hand. The same guards who once saluted her with respect now walked past without looking twice. Cleaner? That fine girl, they whispered. Her heart ached, but she remembered the CEO's words echoing in her mind. Prove that you can respect every job. She took a deep breath and began to scrub the marble floor. As she cleaned, employees passed her, some sneering, others pretending not to see her. But once, when she looked up, she caught sight of him, the CEO, watching quietly from his glass office above. He didn't speak. He just nodded slightly, then turned away. That silent nod burned into her soul, a challenge to grow. At lunch, she sat alone outside, wiping sweat from her forehead. A driver approached, offering her a sachet of water. Take, madam. She hesitated, then smiled weakly. Thank you. For the first time, she said it and meant it. The proud girl was learning, one drop of sweat, one act of kindness at a time. Weeks passed. The once proud Tola now arrived before sunrise, mopping floors before anyone else came in. One morning, she saw the security guard, Musa, yawning by the gate. She smiled gently. Good morning, Musa. He blinked, surprised. Ah, madam, you greet me? Yes, she said softly. Respect, no get uniform. He laughed, touched. From that day, they became friends. Inside his office, the CEO watched everything on the CCTV screen. He saw her bending, cleaning, greeting everyone, the same woman who once called him dirty. A faint smile touched his lips. She's learning, he murmured. But he said nothing, letting life continue its quiet lesson. One afternoon, a pipe burst in the restroom, flooding the floor. While others complained, Tola ran to grab buckets, barefoot and sweating. She worked until the floor was dry again. The HR manager entered, shocked. You did this alone? Tola nodded humbly. Yes, Ma. It's my duty. That night, as she walked home under the streetlights, she whispered, maybe greatness starts from bending low. It was a quiet Thursday morning. Tola walked into the CEO's office with her cleaning bucket as usual. The air smelled of coffee and paper, like every other day. She hummed a gospel tune as she wiped his desk, arranging files carefully, the way he liked it. For the first time in years, she felt peace, a peace born from letting pride die. Then she heard a thud, sharp, heavy. She turned quickly. The CEO lay on the floor, his hand clutching his chest, his face pale. Sir, sir, she screamed, rushing to him. No one answered. She ran to the hallway, shouting for help. Somebody, help! The boss has collapsed. Guards and staff came running. She dropped to her knees beside him, pressing his chest, tears already flowing. Stay with me, sir. Please don't go. They rushed him into a car. Tola sat in the back, holding his hand tightly as they sped off. The same hands that once pointed at her with pride now trembled in weakness. At that moment, she didn't see a billionaire. She saw a man, fragile, human, and dear, and she prayed through tears. Lord, please don't let him die before I thank him. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and fear. Nurses moved quickly, their slippers squeaking against the floor. Tola sat alone on a hard bench, her uniform stained with tears and dust. She stared at the door that led to the emergency room, whispering prayers she hadn't said in years. God, please give him another chance, not for him alone, but for me too. Hours passed. Night fell. Everyone else went home, but Tola stayed. She dozed off once, then woke up to the sound of machines beeping. When the doctor came out, she jumped up. Doctor, please, how is he? The man smiled slightly. He'll live. You brought him just in time. Her knees gave way. She knelt right there on the hospital floor, whispering, Thank you, Jesus. Morning sunlight streamed through the blinds. The CEO slowly opened his eyes. The first face he saw wasn't a nurse or family member. It was Tola's, swollen-eyed but smiling. "You stayed?" he asked weakly. She nodded, voice trembling. "I couldn't leave the man who taught me to live right." He smiled faintly. "So, the proud lady can also cry for others?" She laughed softly through her tears. "Yes, sir. I finally see what truly matters." The next morning, Tola sat beside his hospital bed, peeling an orange slowly. He watched her quietly, his chest bandaged, a drip attached to his arm. "Why didn't you go home?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Home can wait, sir. You gave me a job when I didn't deserve it. This is my turn to serve you." Her words touched something deep in him, something money could never buy. Later, as the nurse stepped out, he said softly, "You know, Tola, I never planned to embarrass you. I only wanted to see your heart." Tola bowed her head, tears in her eyes. "You did more than that, sir. You broke my pride and saved my soul." He chuckled weakly. "Maybe God used both of us to teach each other." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Maybe so." Days turned to a week. Each day, she brought him home-cooked food, prayed beside him, and smiled like a daughter. He once told her, "You remind me of who I was before wealth blinded me." She smiled. "And you remind me of who I want to be." Two broken hearts, one healed by humility, the other by love. 2 weeks later, the CEO returned to ANA Holdings, looking healthier but quieter. As he walked through the glass doors, staff whispered in awe, "He's back!" Tola followed behind him, still in her cleaner's uniform, carrying a small file. She didn't walk with pride this time. She walked with peace. Everyone stared, confused. "Why is she with him?" they murmured. He turned once, smiled at her, and said softly, "You first." Inside the conference hall, department heads were seated, waiting for his address. He cleared his throat and began, "Before we discuss business, I have a story to tell." Everyone listened. He told them about the proud graduate, the Okada ride, the insult, and the lesson, but he never mentioned her name. When he finished, silence filled the room. Then he said, "The girl in my story is standing right here beside me." Gasps filled the hall. Tola looked down, trembling. He turned to her and said, "True greatness isn't in titles, it's in humility." Then he added with a smile, "And from today, this young woman is no longer a cleaner." Everyone clapped, but Tola's tears spoke louder than the applause. A week later, an official letter arrived, neatly sealed with the company logo. Tola opened it slowly, hands trembling. Her eyes widened. "Appointment, personal assistant to the CEO." She couldn't believe it. The same woman who once cleaned the floor was now walking beside the man she once insulted. But instead of pride, she felt fear. "God, please help me not to forget the lesson," she whispered. Her first day as PA was rough. Some staff whispered behind her, "How can a cleaner become PA? Must be something else going on." Others ignored her completely, but Tola kept her head low, doing her work with quiet grace. She organized a schedule, served tea, answered calls, never once complaining. And each time he said thank you, she smiled and replied, "It's my honor, sir." One afternoon, a visiting investor mistook her for a secretary and spoke rudely. Before the CEO could respond, Tola smiled politely and said, "It's fine, sir. Every role is important." The CEO watched her quietly. That night, as he locked his office, he murmured to himself, "Now she's truly rich, not in money but in heart." The evening of ANA Holdings' anniversary dinner arrived. The ballroom glittered with lights, gold drapes, and the smell of luxury. Men in tuxedos laughed over champagne. Women sparkled in gowns worth fortunes. Tola stood at the edge of the hall, wearing a simple Ankara dress. Nothing flashy, just graceful. She clutched her invitation nervously, whispering, "Lord, let tonight glorify you." Midway through the event, the CEO took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight we celebrate not just success, but transformation." Everyone clapped. Then he paused and said, "There's someone here whose story changed my view of leadership." He turned toward Tola. Tola Adeyemi, please come forward. The hall went silent as she walked slowly to stage, her hands shaking. The CEO smiled and spoke clearly. This woman insulted me the first day we met, but when I collapsed, she saved my life. Gasps echoed. He continued, true greatness isn't in position but in humility. Then he announced, from today, she'll study abroad on a full MBA scholarship, sponsored by me. The crowd erupted in applause. Tola broke into tears, whispering, God, you humbled me before blessing me. The day of departure arrived. Tola stood outside Murtala Muhammad Airport, holding her small suitcase and passport. The CEO stood beside her, wearing a calm smile. You've made me proud, he said. She bowed slightly. No, sir. You made me human again. He chuckled. Don't forget Lagos dust. It taught you your first lesson. She laughed softly, eyes glistening. Never, sir. I'll always remember. As the plane took off, Tola stared out the window, watching the city shrink beneath clouds. Memories flashed. Her insults, the mop, the hospital, the stage. Tears slid down her cheeks. She whispered, Pride buried me, but grace dug me out. The woman who once looked down on others was now flying toward her new life. Not as a queen of pride, but as a servant of purpose. Weeks later, in a foreign land, she walked into a new university. Head high but heart humble, she studied hard, helped classmates, and mentored younger students. Each night, she wrote in her journal, success without character is failure in disguise. And back home, the CEO often looked at her photo on his desk and smiled. 3 years later, a black SUV stopped in front of the ANA Holdings gate. When the door opened, a graceful woman stepped out. Calm smile, glowing skin, and quiet confidence. It was Tola. No makeup, no noise, just grace and motion. The same guards who once ignored her now rushed to greet her. Ah, Madame Tola. Welcome. She smiled warmly. Musa, you still here? Yes, oh, madam, he said proudly, still guarding the gate where greatness passed. Inside the office, the CEO looked up from his desk and froze. Tola, he whispered. She knelt slightly and said, Sir, I came to say thank you for believing in a broken girl. He stood, smiling. You were never broken, Tola. You were being built. Their laughter filled the office, no longer boss and worker, but teacher and student of life. He handed her a sealed envelope. Your new position, he said. Inside, Regional Manager, ANA Holdings, Abuja branch. Tola gasped. Sir, I don't deserve this. He smiled. That's why you do. Tola looked out the window. Same Lagos sun, same dust. But now, she saw beauty in it. Abuja was different, calmer, wider, and filled with new faces. Tola stepped into her new office, greeted by curious staff. Good morning, Ma, they said, half in respect, half in fear. She smiled warmly. Please, just call me Tola. Titles don't clean hearts. Her tone was gentle, yet firm, the kind that wins loyalty, not fear. One afternoon, a nervous intern spilled coffee on her table. He froze, stammering, I'm so sorry, Ma. Tola looked at the trembling boy and saw herself years ago, full of pride and panic. She smiled softly. It's okay. Grab a cloth. We'll clean it together. The boy's eyes widened. No boss had ever said that before. From that day, he followed her like a younger brother. At night, Tola opened a small journal, the same one she kept abroad. Inside, she wrote, Tomorrow, I'll start a mentorship program for jobless youth. I'll teach them dignity before salary. She closed it gently, looked up at the stars, and whispered, If I once mocked a rider and God lifted me, then I must lift others too. It was a bright Friday morning. Tola was in her office, signing documents, when her secretary rushed in. Ma, there's someone here to see you, she said. Who? Tola asked without looking up. The door opened slowly, and there he was, the CEO, the man who once rode the Okada, now older, but his eyes still calm and full of wisdom. Tola froze and smiled deeply. Sir, he laughed softly. You still call me sir? She chuckled. You'll always be my teacher." They sat together like old friends. He said, "I heard what you're doing with the youth program. That's powerful." Tola looked down humbly. "I'm only passing forward what you gave me, a second chance." He nodded slowly. "I didn't give you a chance, Tola. God did. I was just a messenger." Their eyes met. The silence spoke a gratitude words could never express. Before leaving, he handed her a small box. Inside was a gold pen engraved with the words, "From Dust to Destiny." Tola smiled, tears shining in her eyes. He said gently, "Never forget the road that raised you." She replied softly, "And never forget the dust that blessed me." Months later, Tola stood before a grand audience. Young entrepreneurs, students, and leaders gathered for the annual Voices of Africa Summit. Camera flashes filled the hall. Her voice was calm, strong, and full of truth. "Once, I mocked a man because I thought he was below me. But that moment became my mirror. It showed me who I really was." The crowd listened in silence. True success isn't about cars, offices, or titles. It's about how you treat people when you think you don't need them. The hall erupted in applause, not because of fame, but because of truth. Someone uploaded her speech online. Within days, millions watched. People commented, "This story changed how I treat others." From mockery to mercy, what a journey. Her past shame became her greatest message. That evening, she stood alone by her balcony, the city lights twinkling below. The wind whispered through the curtains as she held the gold pen close to her heart. She wrote one final note in her journal. "I was tested by pride. I was saved by grace. And I was lifted by humility." Tola smiled. No longer the proud girl at the interview gate, but the woman whose story taught the world. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this message. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what act of kindness inspired you today. Thanks for being part of this journey. Until next time, remember, even the smallest act of kindness can change a life.